All right. So today we are working through the review. Today's half of the review is going to focus mostly on equation work. So graphing some points, converting points back and forth from polar to rectangular, and so on. On Monday when we come in, we'll spend more time focusing on graphs. So graphing limacons, cardioids, working with restrictions, and so on from there. Okay, so kind of split into 2 days just based on how we got this thing working. Okay. Gave you that test review. That answer key will be posted on Schwann Academy. You can check it from there. So for this first one, we're converting to a polar complex form. If we're going to polar complex, what two things do I need if I want to go to polar? R and theta. If we're going to R and theta, that means this is X and Y. If we're going to polar form, in the end, my answer is going to be W equals something cosine something plus I sine something. That is polar complex form in the end. I'm going to look like that. We've got X and Y. We're trying to get R and theta. What can I do to go from X and Y to get me R? Pythagorean Theorem. So that's what we're going to do. 4 squared plus, you can throw the negative in there. The negative's not going to matter though because I'm squaring it, equals R squared. 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 squared would be 16. Radical 3 squared would be 3 equals R squared. So R squared is going to be 64. So what number is going in front of my parentheses? 8. That is my radius. It's 8. Then I got to find my angle. I'm taking X and Y and getting me theta. What equation that we know takes X and Y and gets me theta? Tangent. So we are doing the formula. Tangent of theta equals Y over X. I set it up. I simplified down. The 2 4s are going to cancel. When is tangent of theta going to get me a radical or a negative radical 3? That would be at 120 or 300. The last couple tests, I've been nice and I've given you a unit circle. I'm not giving you a unit circle. I'm not giving you any equations. These are things that you need to be understanding. Okay, in about 2 weeks, we start AP Calculus. All right, so you have to be able to understand your unit circle. We're not doing a ton in AP Calculus, but you got to know the basics, and that's what I'm asking you in this. Okay, so 120 or 300. Which one do I want, 120 or 300? 300 because I want the Y to be negative and the X to be positive. So 300 goes there. Everybody good through the first part? The next one, now they gave me Z, and they're asking me to find W squared over Z. Well, to get W, that's what we found right here. This was W. So the first thing I need to do is find W squared. If I'm finding W squared, what do I need to do with that 8 here? Brooklyn, what do I need to do? I square it. If it says W squared, I take the radius, I square it. So it's going to get her 64. What are you going to do with your angle? You multiply by 2. If I'm squaring it, I just take the angle and multiply by 2. So 315 times 2 would get me 630. If it's a normal problem, do I want to leave it at 630? No, because it's too big. I'm going to leave it right here for a second. It's not 630. I lied. I looked at the wrong number. It's not 630. Don't put 630. 600, sorry. I was looking at Z. I meant to look at W. I don't want to leave it at 600. Okay? Normally I would subtract 360. You could get 240 and go from there. I'm just going to leave it because the very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take W squared divided by Z. It's going to give me the same answer no matter what. Just saves me one calculation. Okay? So then we're doing W squared over Z. Evelyn, what am I going to do to get the radius here for W squared over Z? 64 divided by 4. So 64 divided by 4, that gets me 16. And then it's cosine of my angle. What am I going to do with my angles here? If I have 600 and 315, what do I need to do? Subtract. 600 minus 315 gets me 285. Plus I sine 285. Boom. Questions on what I did there? If you made 600 a regular angle at 240 and then you subtracted, you would have got a negative angle and had to work it back, which would be totally fine. I just took out one part. Cool. Put your name on your ballot. Pass that up. I'll come get it. Here we go. We are doing some whiteboard review today. Again, we're focusing more on equations and points. On Monday, we'll focus on graphs. You've got 3 dots there. 3, -60, -3, -240, and -3, 300. It is your job to figure out which one does not belong. Think about it. Write the answer on your board. Hold it up. We look. Show me with your fingers in which quadrant would 3, -60 be. Show me with your fingers in which quadrant is 3, -60. That would be in 4th quadrant because 3 +60 would be right here. But I've got a negative angle, so I flip over the x-axis. This right here is where A would be. Show me with your fingers which quadrant is -3, -240 going to fall into. -3, -240 would fall in the 4th quadrant because if I started right here, I have a negative radius, so I would ride the line. And then I have a negative angle, so then I would flip across. So A and B are in the same spot. So if A and B are in the same spot, it's because D is not, or C is not here. Okay? Show me with your fingers which quadrant is C going to end up in. C is going to end up in the 2nd quadrant. 3, 300 would be here, but it's got a negative radius, which would shoot you across to right there. C is sad. Oh, he's sad. He's by himself. We good with the first one? We just did that in Bellwork, didn't we? Do that one. You don't have to actually graph it. Just tell me the different things. What type of graph is it? What's the symmetry? Where's the maximum going to happen? Hold it up. There we go. Let's look. Type of graph. Anytime we say what type of graph it is, if you say it's a rose, tell me how many petals. How many petals are it going to be? 3 petals because of 3 in front of my theta. Rose with 3 petals. What type of symmetry? Y-axis because it's sine. My maximum is going to be 7. To make it 7, this is the place we made a mistake. -7 times what would get me 7? Well, it would be -1. So what that means is sine of 3 theta needs to be -1. So 3 theta is going to be 270, but that's what 3 theta is. If I then divide that by 3, it's going to get me 90 degrees. Otherwise, you will graph it incorrectly. You've got to do that division. That is the one thing you screw up. And the one way to fix that is to not do that, but also just graph it on your calculator. If you graph it on your calculator, it'll check what you're doing. Next one, convert that from polar complex to rectangular complex. We're converting this thing. There's 2 ways of doing it. The one way you can do it is just distribute. And the reason that works is because we're trying to get x and y. Well, x equals r cosine theta. This is r. That is cosine theta. And so basically it's just like distributing. Cosine of 180 is -1, so it's 6 times -1. My answer is -6 for x. Okay. For my y, it's y equals I sine 180. Okay. It's r sine theta. So it's really like 6 times that. 6 times 0 gets me 0. That's my y. We're putting it in rectangular complex form. So rectangular complex form looks like this. Z equals x plus I y. Now in this case, my y is 0. So it's really just -6. Let's keep working. Find z times w. When we look at it here, z times w. What am I doing with the 2 radii if I'm doing z times w? Multiply them. Z 3 times 6 gets me 18. I take my 2 angles. What do I need to do with 280 and 350? Add them. You add them together. You get 630, but that's too big. So we subtract out a circle to get us back to 270 degrees plus I sine 270. Boom, done. Again, if there is one problem that you need to review from today, it'd be this one. Most of us are fine, but if you've forgotten it, you got to remember it. We're converting to a rectangular equation. Right now, it's an r and theta, so we need to go to x and y. The first thing I would do is substitute out cosine theta. Cosine theta is the same thing as x over r. We don't like that. How do I get rid of this r in the bottom? Multiply both sides by r. So if I multiply both sides by r, that is going to get me r squared equals 14x. Okay? Don't like r squared. I'm trying to get to x and y. What can I replace r squared with? X squared plus y squared. So we would get x squared plus y squared equals 14x. We need to recognize that this is a circle. It's got x squared and a y squared, so it's a circle. So we got to get the x's together. So from here, we're getting everything to this side. we get x squared minus 14x plus a blank. We got to have a blank in there. And then it's plus y squared. And if we add a blank to one side, we got to add it to the other. So there's a blank on the other side. Then we fill in the blank. We fill in the blank with half of b squared. So you take negative 14, you cut it in half, you get negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49. 49. The last thing I got to do is factor this part right here. Oh, that's super ugly. I'm factoring that thing right there. To factor it, it is x something squared plus y squared equals 49. Negative 14, you cut it in half, you get negative 7. That is my missing number. Point, it's a circle. Point, which direction is your circle going to move? It is moving to the right because it's with my x. It's going to take me on the x-axis, and it's minus 7. We do the opposite, so it should take me to the right. What is the radius of that circle going to be? 7. Fill in that chart. Go down the line. We know it's a limacon. It'd be a cardioid if these two numbers are the same. They're not, so it is a limacon. You get to use your calculator on the test, so just graph it. If you're like, is that a loop or not? Just graph it. It does not have a loop here, though. Symmetry is y-axis because it's sine. My r is going to be equal to 5 minus 4 times something. I want this number to be as big as possible. So we would want it to be negative 1. So it would be 9. If that's negative 1, when is sine negative 1 at 270 degrees? Questions there? Try that one. And we're going z to the fourth. What do I need to do with my z if I'm doing z to the fourth? Take it to the fourth power. So z to the fourth power, this 3 to the fourth power would get me 81. And then it is cosine of my angle. What am I doing with this angle if it's to the fourth power? Times 4. 280 times 4 would be 1120. Minus or plus I sine 1120. That's too big. So if it's too big, we then subtract out 360. I know you would keep subtracting out 360 because I'm old. There used to be a video game called 1080 skateboard or snowboarding. That was about doing 3 rotations, so I know my stuff. If you do 1120 minus 1080, it would get you 40 degrees. Okay, that's 3 rotations, 360, 360, 360. Good there? We're almost done. Try that one. Fill in my information. These two numbers are the same, so what shape we got? Cardioid. This guy right here is x-axis because it's cosine. Great. Maximum, my radius is 12. What would I want this to be? 6 plus 6 times something. I want that to be a 1. When is cosine 1? At 0 degrees. Questions there? We're doing well. Don't do it. If we were doing z divided by w, what would we do with the 2 radii? Divide them, so it'd be 1/2. What would you do with the 2 angles? 280 minus 350 would be negative 70. What would you do to make that good? Add 360. Good. If I'm converting this from rectangular to polar, if it's rectangular, what are these two things right now? X and Y. If they're in X and Y right now, you want to get what two things? R and theta. What formula is going to take X and Y and get you R? Pythagorean Theorem. What formula is going to take X and Y and get you theta? Tangent. Great. We're going the other way. This is, we already did that. It's the same thing. So if we're converting from polar to rectangular, this is R and theta. You want to go to rectangular, it's X and Y. What is going to take R and theta to get you X? R cosine theta. What is going to get you Y? R sine theta. That's it. Okay. Again, today was a focus on equations. Let's do this one real quick. Let's go 3 equals, just playing. R equals 3 secant theta. Convert that and graph it. R equals 3 secant theta. Convert it to rectangular and then graph it. Good. We're doing a good job here. If we're converting this to rectangular, we want to get rid of R and theta. So the first thing I would do is change secant to be R over X. I don't want X on bottom, so I'm going to multiply both sides by X. I don't want that R at all, so I'm going to divide both sides by R. If I divide both sides by R, I get X is equal to 3. Show me with your arm, what does an X equals line look like? Vertical. Boom. It'd be over here at 3. So again, today was more about points, complex, and equations. On Monday when we come in, we'll focus on graphing stuff like limesons and cardioids and all of that, and then working with restrictions. With those two parts together, that's what's on your test.